Hello, this is JP and Rohan, and you're watching.
Absolute game of nerd.
So, welcome to the what episode are we at,
This is
Rohan?
35. 35.
35th episode of the Absolute Game of Nerds with your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, JP and Rohan. And in today's episode, we are going to interview a unicorn of our industry. And Rohan will go ahead and give us a better introduction for Bianca.
Yeah, so we have Bianca Collects, unicorn in the sense that she's only the second female and first solo female we've had on our show. I don't know when I started following Bianca, but we follow all these various people in the community, and then she happened to be on with our buddy Nick as a co-host on his show Geekable, and I was like, oh, we need to have this. We need to have her on the show, and it was like another female, so it just worked out great. Bianca, say hi. How you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to join you guys.
Yeah, awesome. So we always kind of get started with kind of an origin story. So most of us that kind of took place as a child, or tell us what is your origin, or what got you in. Obviously, there may have been a break somewhere as you got older and then got back into it. So kind of give us the rundown.
Yeah, so mine was probably going to be a bit of a different story because it didn't necessarily start when I was super young. It started literally a year ago. So yeah, so last summer of last year, I decided to watch the entire MCU from beginning to end. So I was like, starting from phase 1, we're going to watch every single project all the way to current stuff.
Wait, let me ask. So someone who had no interest prior, what prompted that decision? Because that's a big decision.
Yeah, no, it is. I feel, I mean, I definitely had seen some of the movies here and there. I did have a friend who's super into it and, like wouldn't shut up about, you got to watch this movie. You got to watch this movie. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. And it was summertime and what else better to do? So I went ahead and went for that journey. It did take about 2 months to watch every single Marvel thing ever made. I did focus more on MCU first and then kind of started watching other things, but I fell in love. I'm a very all or nothing person. So the second I liked it a little bit, it was like full force. So I really enjoyed it. And I decided one day, I was like, I want to know what the comic book world is like. Like, what is the comic side of this whole universe? And I downloaded Whatnot one day. I bought my first comic book literally on Whatnot. It was like a $3 comic book, and I was
what comic was it?
It was oh my god! Now that it was at Avengers 247, 243, something like that. Definitely not like a major book or anything, but it was. I was like, oh, this is going to be addicting because Whatnot is dangerous. And then shortly after that, like I bought that, and then right after, in the same show, I literally got a great deal on the entire issues 1 through 12 of the Vision and Scarlet Witch series, and I bought the whole thing in one shot, and I was like, mine. And that was it. And then it just kind of took off from there. And then I started getting into Star Wars as well, and just into that whole world. Then I started collecting Funko Pops, and it just kind of cascaded from there. And it all started like with the movies. That's it. It was that really took me off.
I just want to say real quick, I sent JP this last night, I think it was. I just saw that PSA is now grading Funko Pops.
Yeah, I have seen that, and I see it on Whatnot, because now you can grade on Whatnot or whatever. You can like make that an option, and I've
like
seen
send to a grader.
Yeah, send to a grader, and I see that that's like a whole thing now, and I'm like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. JP, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, back during COVID, I had a buddy who had never seen any Star Wars movies or the MCU movies, and I said, you got to watch Star Wars, and he had watched Star Wars: A New Hope, the original from the 70s, and he couldn't get past the first 15 minutes of it. He said it was so boring and he hated it. And then he watched Captain America, the first Avenger, and he said that was pretty good, but it never cascaded into more from there. He hated Star Wars, which I could see because the effects are so different than today, but I don't know if it's the fact that I saw it originally, so therefore I can appreciate it. Whereas somebody fresh that never saw that, I mean, I don't know how when you first saw A New Hope, were you like, this is corny, or was this?
Yeah.
Was it?
So
what
it's funny because I did Star Wars the same way. I thought, okay, now I'm going to branch out in the fandom world and I'm going to do the same thing with Star Wars. And I was like, I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm going to watch every single movie. And I did do it in release order. I'm a big fan of that. Did a release, not like chronological, like in the sense of like timeline. So I did watch the original trilogy first. And I think I went into it knowing it was going to be like that. And I think that with that perspective, like I knew it was going to be bad in the sense of like the effects were going to be from the 70s. What can you expect? And even the acting is pretty corny, right? Like these stormtroopers are like the most dramatic, like falling over and all of that. Like it's so dramatic, but I think that that's part of the nostalgia of, and that's part of the whole thing. And then the joy of like seeing it all progress is why I tell everybody watch it in release order, because it's so fun to watch the progression of the films and like how CGI improves and how, you know, all of this changes over time is really fun to watch.
So did you do the MCU also in release order, not chronological?
Yes, I did in release order. Yeah, release.
Okay.
So I started from phase 1, like Iron Man 1, and went down the line. Yeah.
Iron Man 1 is such a great, just right out the gate. Like you really, it's a great choice to just bang.
It is.
I should have had my buddy start with Iron Man, but I thought he's in the army, whatnot. I thought he'd appreciate not Winter Soldier, but First Avenger, and I think he liked it. But I don't know if that was. I would say Iron Man really was captivating enough to pull people into the rest of the MCU. I don't know if Captain America was a good first for that series, but I think the Iron Man really was the catalyst.
I also think the first Captain America movie is kind of meh. Whereas like Winter Soldier is
right. Yeah, Winter Soldier is
possible best MCU movie.
I think
Civil War too. Like
so good.
I think the beginning of Captain America showing his fight to get into the army and how he was
never
that part
big enough. Cool. Yeah. I agree.
And
with
then
that.
the fact that like whenever they said he couldn't do it and he climbed the pole, and then they said you're just an actor, you're not a soldier, a real soldier, and he went in and got everybody out. You know, I thought that was uplifting in a sense, but it's not a movie I watched all the way to the end. You know, I can watch up to that part, and that's I'm happy. Just like Endgame, I can watch from the beginning when the three of them go to fight Thanos and Captain America gets the Mjolnir, and I could watch that over and over and over and over again. I love that scene. So
I think what's fun about the release order also though is, and what I enjoyed, because I had seen movies here and there kind of sporadically. But watching it in release order, and then you get to see all the references that they make. And in the very beginning of the MCU, they didn't do that much. I think obviously nobody knew it was going to be what it was, right? So they weren't doing those little Easter eggs and those little like hints from other movies. But as you start moving through the phases and they start dropping all these things and everything starts to tie together, it's so much fun to watch it that way instead of like sporadically, because you don't get that. If you're watching it for the first time, you won't pick up on those things if you watch a movie too soon before seeing the other things, you know?
It's like a 1,000-piece puzzle. I can't believe they were able to put it all together like that. You know, looking back and how badly they messed up phase 4, which we may get into later on, but they had just a masterpiece the first 22 movies. So, but on Star Wars, I was going to ask, if you said you did release order, do you think, you know, my kids didn't grow up with Episode 1. They were at the tail end of when it came out, but they were into Clone Wars, so they got the Legos. If anybody started with Episode 1, do you think Star Wars would have been as big as it was, with Episode 1 being the first movie anyone ever saw?
You know, I want to say no. And the reason why I say no is because I feel like we didn't get this villain in Episode 1 the way we got it in Episode 4. So I feel like in Episode 1, right, you get like Maul, who was there for 14 seconds. Like
I know, the best part of the whole.
And that was like the best part of it all. And he was there and then died like right after. So it's like I feel like we didn't get that big hero villain story that everybody loves so much about a movie, versus when you see that in like Episode 4. Right.
Where with Vader right out the gate.
Right out the gate, you're like, this guy is crazy. This guy is insane. You get like the biggest villain ever made in the first time, you know? So I feel like if it would have started with number 1, I don't think it would have hit off the way it did.
No, I agree.
Because of that dynamic wasn't there.
And if you watch the original trilogy, and then what I pictured in my head, and then what they put on screen for 1, 2, and 3 was not what I pictured in my head back 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
I expected all the Jedi to be wearing black and be more militaristic, as opposed to monks running around with swords. Essentially is what it was. And I couldn't stand how Anakin was kind of a whiner, the whole time. Like, I expected him to be just like a badass. They talked about him like he was going to be a badass, and then he was just whining the whole time. Like, he didn't look. Yeah. He was supposed to be some great pilot. He was supposed to be some great Jedi, and all he did was whine until the end, and he got beat badly. And that was the worst fight scene, I think, in all of Star Wars, was the episode 3 when he got beat by Ben Kenobi. I thought it was terrible.
I actually kind of like that. I kind of like that
unpopular opinion.
Yeah, I like that fight scene, even though, he does get more like it.
I had a conversation with my friend. We mapped it out. We could have made it so much better, more intriguing than just him jumping over and then him just cutting off his legs and it's on the ground. It's like, that's how Vader's going to lose his legs. Yeah, I thought it'd been much more riveting. I just thought it could have been done so much better. So,
going back to the MCU, Bianca, what were your favorite movies? Did that then correlate to your favorite characters? I'm assuming obviously Vision and Scarlet Witch are probably some of your favorite characters.
Yeah, for sure. The reason why I had purchased those comic books was because I loved them on screen so much. And then when I got into the comics, I loved Vision even more, because I think we were really cheated on that character movie-wise, big time. So he's like 20 times better in the comics. But I also love the Spider-Man movies. I'm a big Spider-Man girl. Love Spider-Man. So this is probably an unpopular opinion also, but I am a big Tom Holland fan in the sense that I love MCU Spider-Man. So all of that, like No Way Home, those are my favorites.
No Way Home is phenomenal. That's the only good movie post Endgame that there's been.
And not to obviously original Spider-Man is awesome too, but I just loved how it tied in with the MCU at the end of the day, and then they brought that nostalgia too of mixing, which was really nice. But some other movies that I loved, like watching, like I loved Ragnarok. I freaking loved that movie. That movie was like top tier for sure for me. Civil War is my favorite Captain. I mean, that movie was kind of like a mini Avengers movie.
Yeah, I essentially consider Civil War an Avengers level.
An Avengers movie, for sure. Like, we got Avengers so much in that movie. It was great. And obviously Endgame, but I think Infinity War is better.
I agree. I think Infinity War is actually a better movie. Yeah.
If we're talking about like battle scene, obviously Endgame,
Endgame gives you the payoff, but the actual better movie, I believe, as well, is Infinity War.
Yeah, Infinity War for sure. I would say, like, if you ask me favorite Marvel movie, like I could only watch one more for the rest of my life, it would be Infinity War for sure. For sure.
It's funny because I don't like the fact they lose in that movie, and that's probably when I'll watch it, but I love Empire Strikes Back. That's my favorite Star Wars, and they lost badly in that one. So I don't know why I'd like Endgame better and not Return of the Jedi over Empire, but it's weird. But I liked it, but it would definitely be top 5. But Endgame, I think they're so long. I just have to start at one part and I can't spend
that's what it is. It's to start at one part and then and watch it. But and I really did love Guardians 3. I don't know if you guys have seen Guardians 3 yet, but man, that was some good stuff. I love that movie so much.
I had a bit of I did not like Adam Warlock, the take on Adam Warlock. That was my issue.
No, I could have done without it. I definitely could have done. Like, he could have been removed from the movie.
Exactly, could have absolutely been removed, and you would have not known a difference.
And I think when they brought Adam Warlock in Guardians 2, he was supposed to be used in Endgame.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened there.
They didn't want to use him for whatever reason.
Is,
so therefore,
obviously, what happened in the books.
Right.
So what I wanted to ask then, so based on kind of what you said, not only did you get into collecting comics, but it sounds like you are actually reading them.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I have always been a reader in the sense that I read like fiction novels and things like that. Like, so I'm an avid reader. So I figured I would not just give it a shot as in for collecting purposes, but I was curious of the actual storylines. So I did, I I would say 95% of the books that I buy. Sometimes I buy something just for the cover, I will say. And especially like modern books, you know, some of those covers are just so good. And not really caring about what's in it is more about the art of the cover. So there are probably some in my collection that I haven't read, but I do read most of the books. Yeah.
So do you have like a pull list at a local shop or?
I don't actually, but I do visit my LCS quite often. And I kind of look at what, sometimes I don't purchase anything, honestly. Sometimes some weeks are bad and and I haven't really lately fell in love with any current story right now, to be honest. So I'm not really like reading anything that's current. But I do every once in a while kind of see what's new and pick up what's new, especially like indie stuff. I feel like it, there is a good selection at my LCS, so I'm able to shop around there.
What kind of indie stuff have you been grabbing?
So there's I don't know if you've read, it's called Cloak.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, it's really, really good. So it's from Boom Studios. No, Image. It's from Image. I lied. It's Image. And it was actually pretty good. It's definitely like a little obscure at first. You're like, I don't know what's going on. Like the first book, and I think that's what caught me. I was like, it's kind of like a mystery in a weird town. They're kind of like fish people. This whole thing sounds very weird when you hear it out loud, but it's actually, It's a pretty good story. But no, my favorite indie story is Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah, that's usually quite popular.
Yeah,
How about World Tree?
What?
World Tree? Have you picked up World Tree?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
is that good?
It's similar to, I don't know if it's something killing the children. It's similar to that, or a similar writer. I hear about it. I don't read any of the books. I buy the keys and I like to display them. And I've tried to read a couple books over the past year, and I can't. So I give you credit. I wish I could, and that's a good way to buy them for the stories, because there are some definite great stories. And Something Killing the Children is, from what I understand, pretty awesome. So
it's I would say like some top tier comic reading, because I would definitely say, like, I've read some books where it's tough to get through. Like old, like Silver Age comic books are horribly written. I mean, this is so
and
bad.
If you buy a Fantastic Four and you have a Jack Kirby cover, that's horribly drawn too.
we have a qualm. JP does not like Jack Kirby. I love Jack Kirby. So
I could see the, that kind of in between there. There's some covers that aren't great, but the stories are so bad. I mean, they are written, it's bad and it's cheesy. Like the the one-liners.
I mean, I think it's all relative. Like, have you ever like picked up like you said you read fiction. Have you ever picked up like a Charles Dickens book? Like, you read those and you're just like, oh my God, this is so boring. Like, the controversy is Bianca went to the bar by herself without a man accompanying her. And you're just like, ooh, the town was in Twitter. And it's just like, I can't read this, right? I think it's all kind of relative. I think like if we were back there and that's why like I don't have any really like, I know the stories from the Silver Age and I think they're great, but I don't have any desire to actually go back and read the individual ones because I know the greater story and that's what's enjoyable. I don't need to read. Yeah, I agree. Like in terms of like reading them today in 2023, I'm right there with you.
They're more funny than anything. Like I read them to like laugh because, like you said, the way that they talked back then, and it's almost like it's entertaining because it's kind of like a time machine in the sense that you could see the lingo of the 70s and you're like, who talked like this? This is so bad. It's not, and they're trying to be funny and the jokes don't hit ever. And you're like, what is this? But it's funny because they thought it was funny. So
I'm sure,
but modern stuff is actually like pretty enjoyable. And that Something's Killing the Children is, I mean, if you like horror stuff, it is a little gory. Obviously has to do with kids. So like, there's
doesn't that same writer have something with a lake? Lost House?
I don't know that, but the
House on the Lake or something.
House on the Lake or something. And I think some of those are supposed to be getting optioned for shows, I think.
Yeah, well, Something is Killing the Children is supposedly going to be picked up by Netflix.
Okay.
That was, I think, confirmed from what I heard.
Okay.
We missed out on that because it already started prior to COVID, correct? Something is Killing Children?
Yeah, something like that. It was like something weird, and then it stopped, and then there was like a whole thing with that. But that is, I mean, if they do it they do it right, that's going to be
Yeah, well, did you read Paper Girls?
no.
Okay, that was on Netflix. I watched the first couple episodes. I thought it was, Stranger Things, but not exactly. Not that I wanted it to be another Stranger Things, but it had sort of that uh, vibe of Stranger Things. So I thought it could have gone far, and they canceled it after one season. So then that book plummets, and now you can find them anywhere. But that's what I
Yeah.
hope they don't do to Something Is Killing Children. They make it, a couple seasons worth.
Yeah,
Since
I
letting
hope
go there.
so. I hope so because there's definitely like a really good story to tell with that one. It's one of the best comic books, like reading wise, that I've ever read. So good.
Who's the writer on that one?
It's
Um,
Tynion, isn't it?
yeah.
James
Yeah,
Tynion?
James
Mhm.
Tinian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Bianca, what is? Go
he
ahead.
wrote World Tree, so he's the one that wrote World Tree too, I
Oh,
believe.
okay,
So
okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
And I, yeah,
definitely
that's
interesting.
what I thought, and I think he wrote that Lake one, and yeah. What I was going to ask, so collecting wise, you're obviously reading some indie modern stuff. You have knowledge of Silver Age stuff. I saw like an Avengers 57 on your Instagram page.
Yeah.
Break down your like collecting or collection. Like, what are you going after? Like, how do your interests fall?
So, I do have some key books that I really I search for those that I'm like really wanting for a specific character or a specific storyline, a specific first appearance. I don't just buy books because they're keys, if that makes sense. Like it has to like in some way connect to like a character that I like or something like that. So I'm definitely not buying books necessarily for their value like money wise, but more for their value for me. My collection does kind of range. I do have stuff from Silver Age, bronze, modern. I mean, I have kind of a little bit of everything. I do only collect Marvel and then a little bit of indie. I don't collect any DC.
awesome.
I never got into it. I know every
Well,
every
that's what I was
time
going
I
to say.
say
You
it.
like with all the movie watching, you didn't like pick up like the Dark Knight trilogy or
Well,
anything
so
like
I've seen definitely some DC movies. Like I've seen The Dark Knight. I mean, that's like an iconic movie. I feel like
Okay.
if you haven't seen that, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
And if you didn't think it was good, are you okay? I mean,
Yeah.
that's an
Exactly.
amazing film. But I guess like I never connected with those characters enough for me to want to then go into the comics of it all. Everybody tells me I need to just give it a shot, and maybe one day I will. But for now, Marvel is my thing. I do have some Star Wars stuff as well, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, or Dark Horse. I kind of dabble in both. Both storylines are pretty good. And yeah, I would say probably one of my bigger books is Avengers 57. I don't have anything that's like, oh my God, 5K book or something crazy like that. My keys are pretty like, well, probably most people would think is nothing too crazy. But I collect what I love. I think
Yeah,
that's
there
the
you
moral of
go.
the story, right? Is
What,
collect what you love.
Well, I mean, if you got
what's
Avengers
your
57
favorite book?
I say you got to be searching for X-Men 4 if you're a big Scarlet Witch fan too.
That's the dream. That's
Okay.
the dream, Rohan. That is like that's up there on my like
That book though has fallen way,
You're right, it has.
way down. I mean,
It
it's still
has.
not cheap by any means, but
Yeah,
like I feel like you can find like a 2.5 to 4.0 for like $1,200, and that used to be like a $2,500 book. Like it's come well half over down.
Wow.
Yeah, the prices I feel like of a lot have gone. I mean, it's crazy. Things are dropping for sure. For certain books, but yeah, X-Men 4 is definitely is on my list. I mean, first appearance of Scarlet Witch would be definitely a good book to have for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree.
What
So what are your favorite books? So Avengers 57, do you have any like key Star Wars books that you covet?
I actually don't have any key Star Wars books. I do have some like older stuff. Like I do have like a Star Wars 4. That is not necessarily like key, but it's nice and old.
Right, yeah.
But I actually picked that one up at MegaCon. It was like shoved in a box somewhere, and I pulled that thing, and I was like, "That's nice." And it was someone missed out on that one, and it's in pretty decent shape. I love Daredevil as well, hence my little sweater here.
Nice.
But I'm a big Elektra fan, so I have first appearance of Elektra.
Oh, nice. That's nice.
I have her second and her third actually. So I have her whole little appearance run there. What else do I have that? Oh, I actually, another good deal that I got, kind of at a little convention type of thing. I have Spider-Man Noir 1, like his first appearance.
Oh, wow.
I
Nice.
got a steal on a 9.8, like beautiful book. Like, oh my God, I love that character.
I don't know. Tell me about. I don't know anything about Spider-Man Noir. And I know they're making.
Yeah, I feel like nobody
show,
does.
What is Spider-Man Noir?
So this is like a how can I explain this? Like a
Like a Dick
think like
Tracy
black
almost.
and white film, like mobstery kind of vibe.
Like Sin City kind of thing.
Yeah, that city,
Like the 30s.
Yeah, like think of him like sitting at a table reading a newspaper, smoking a cigarette, talking with this like one of those accents you hear on like old time radio. Like like it's very like
gritty,
that.
very gritty talking.
Yeah.
Who are like Spider-Man Noir's villains?
What is this guy? Oh my God. He's kind of like it's funny. He reminds me of like a vulture type of character, but he's like like he has like he tries to build things on his body. I can't think of this guy's name right now that you're like asking me for it, but he is trying to be like futuristic, right? Like, but we're like in the olden times. So he's like trying to build like robotic type things.
Like that 30s, 50s, 40s atomic energy type looking.
Yeah. Right.
I think.
But he's very like good cop, bad cop type of like Spider-Man Noir is like very like that. Where he's like wants to do things kind of the wrong way. Like it is a little dark. Like he wants to kind of cross the line sometimes. But he's trying to be a hero and trying to be a good guy. And so there's like a little play on that in the story where he's like, you know, trying to not be as bad as he wants to be or as like violent as he wants to be. It's a cool little dynamic, very different.
Because of Spider-Verse? Is that why?
It was first introduced to the character in the Spider-Verse movie, yeah. And then
in the Spider-Verse movie?
Yeah, the first one.
Nicolas Cage.
Cage.
I totally forgot that.
Yeah.
He had the hat on, and all you can really see his face. But it says here the key facts: Spider-Man Noir, the one from 2009, it was Vulture Noir. So it must be a vulture, but very, quite a name, Vulture Noir.
Wait,
they didn't have to think too hard on that one.
Was the vulture in the the scene in the second movie now when
I don't think that's not the same one.
It's not that, like it's not that scene. But it's like kind of similar to something like that where he was trying to be like vulture. And I guess I didn't realize he's literally vulture, but it was definitely like a little bit of a different take on it. But it was he was in that first movie and I was like, oh, I really like this character. And then I started doing like some research on his comic story and everything like that. And then it had been on my wish list, like the Spider-Man Noir 1. And then I was at a little local, it was like at a brewery that we have here in Miami. And people had tents out there, like selling their books, like local places. And I'm just flipping through some slabs and I'm like, oh my God, here it is. And I got a great deal on it. So
do you know the Comics Den? The Comic Den, they're a couple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know them on Whatnot, and I bought several books from them.
Are they in Miami? Are they near you?
I don't. I think.
I know they're in Florida, but I'm not sure where they are in Florida.
But
because they seem to do a lot of those shows that you're talking about, where people just have pop-up tents and they go to these shows. I'm like, I wish we had this around here. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. We have a lot of those like little type events. I think because that is like very popular here, like pop-up events. Like that's like a thing here that people do, whether it's like flea market type sales and stuff like that we have like pop up in different areas. So that's very popular here for all kinds of things, like even like shoes and all that kind of stuff. That's very popular.
That'd be nice. I mean, we have a couple shows here and there, but I do a lot of antique stores to find and flea markets to find books. And that's how I've found, some of the, not oddest or these books you don't find every day. I'll put it that way. Just things that come about. Yeah. I expected to find a Hulk 181 and an X-Men 1 do the garage sales. Nothing yet, but I found, interesting things there. But I feel like when you go to an LCS, they've already priced all their books. So you're not going to find a steal very often. But when you do a pop-up tent, you might have somebody who just Spider-Man Noir is not his favorite character, and he's
Right.
I bought it for $1. I'll get rid of it for this and move on to the next show. So
Yeah,
the LCS guys are not like that. They're trying to nickel and dime everything out
for
of it.
sure.
Not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them are, but
Yeah. No, but I mean, I feel I've always wanted, one day you meet someone who's like, oh, you're into comic books. My dad left this big old
Yes,
long box in my
that's
garage.
the dream. That's the
You want to
dream.
look through it? I have no idea what's in there. And I'm like, AF-15 just whips out of this box.
oh my god.
So
So I
this is a philosophical question. We have debated on this. So if that
Yes.
was the case, do you take the deal and run, or are you honest about what you just pulled out?
Oh my gosh, what a moral dilemma.
Yeah,
know it is.
we've had this discussion. I'm curious your answer now that you said it.
I feel like you gotta ignorance is bliss. And so,
Again, definitely. See,
So I
you're on
feel
my
like-
speed here. You're with me here.
maybe give him a little more than what he thinks, but not as much as what it is.
Totally. And I think two things, right? One, we all have access to the internet, and you can look up any of those
Yeah.
books and find anything within less than 2 minutes.
the
Two,
Amish near me don't have the internet, so maybe they can't check that out.
well,
So
they also don't care about high value things, so they'll
True.
still give it to you, no problem. The other thing I was going to say, like, you have a book that's super valuable. It's only valuable if you get someone to buy it. There's a bit of work that takes
Right.
to actually sell that book, and that someone that doesn't know what AF-15 is probably not going to be willing necessarily to do whatever that takes. So I feel perfectly like, hey, they offered it up. They had their opportunity. I will take advantage of. I mean, I'm with you. Like, yeah, I'm not going to give them $2 for it, but
right, of course.
But I'll
what do you
happily
give for that? You give $100, and then they come back and say that book's worth $10,000. You're like, well, I mean,
What I would probably do, I would probably just be like, oh, these are great comics. How about I just give you like $200 for this whole box or something like
Right.
that?
Yeah, for
Right?
sure. You got to
That way, like it takes all of it off their hands, and they thought they were like, oh, this is a quick, easy couple $100 I made, or something along those lines.
well,
Me saying this is now going to ruin my karma for this ever happening, but this is where I would be.
I saw an ad on Facebook. I've said this, Rohan knows this story before. A woman was selling a bunch of comics that were her kids. And I went out, I drove like an hour and a half almost to look at these comics. And I asked her to send me pictures before I got there. And she said, I already boxed them up. They're in totes. So I got out there, took me an hour and a half to drive there. And I'm looking through these totes, and it was nothing but like 70s and 80s crap. Like nothing was good. I pulled out maybe 10 good books. One of them was Amazing Spider-Man 61, which is a Gwen Stacy appearance. And then I think a couple Ant-Man books or Marvel Premiere Ant-Man books. Now, the grade on them wasn't very high. I ended up giving her, like, I said, listen, I drove all the way out here. How about I just give you $30 for these books here? I picked out 10 of them. And I said, do you have anything else that you're selling? And she said, oh, I have some toys downstairs. So I went down and I looked through all the toys, and I said, listen, this is where your money's at. Sell these toys. Here's a guy who will come out and he'll give you a good number for all these toys. This G.I. Joe's worth money. These Transformers. I said, those comics are not worth a ton. I said, those toys are where it's at. Here's the guy's number. So I felt good when I left there that bought some books for a reasonable price and gave her some good information. I did not even make it home, and I got a Facebook message back saying, you ripped me off. The guy that showed up after you was going to buy that Spider-Man for $150. And I'm like, of course he'll say that he was going to spend that on that book. It wasn't worth that. I mean, I took it to show after show and no one really wanted it. I should have kept it, actually. I ended up trading it, but it wasn't like it was a hot commodity that went like that. So, and I'm like, I felt bad because I didn't want to leave there with that experience. So I thought I did the right thing, but again, the moral dilemma.
Yeah.
If that was Mike from Lunch Money Comics, he'd have gave her $1,000 and walked away with all those shitty books. But hey, karma, karma can get you. So you gotta weigh that out. So, but I don't know what I do. I expected a year ago when Rohan and I got back into collecting in 2022.
So, I mean, essentially the same as her. Like, she was summer, we were essentially like the spring.
Yeah, we were spring, and I thought for sure I'd find it in the garage. Like I was in the same store you had. Someone just gonna hand me some books. And this past weekend, I was driving back from NeoCon, and I saw a Facebook ad, and I stopped at this woman's flea market or yard sale, and it was all new stuff. It said vintage, but there was nothing later than like 2005. Oh. And her friend was there, and she said her friend, my friend has comics from like the '60s, and they're all different kind. I'm like, where's she live? And I followed her to her house, and she pulled out this stack of comics, and I was like, man, there's gonna be, maybe there's an old Spider-Man in here, and most of it was like Vampirella, like nothing great. But I was like,
some people like Vampirella. There's some Vampirellas worth some money.
I grabbed some of them, and I can show you them. Some of them, but they were like off, like the Scarecrow, from a Walt Disney Scarecrow, not the Batman Scarecrow, which is a weird looking book. A couple of things, but nothing of value. But I really got, could feel the hair in my, start to stand up or get excited that there would be something in that pile, because who knows, someone. It's all who values what. So
for sure. And so that collection you got behind you there only started last spring?
I collected as a kid, and I had a short box full of a lot of Todd McFarlane Spider-Man and some other like various Spider-Man like Hulk. So like the Punisher ones, some of them are ones I had, and then other ones are one I traded and I had to get back when I got back into collecting. I had sold them off just because I was done collecting and I had to go back and get them. So like ASM 300, 298, 299, I went back and bought all those. But like a lot of these are recent. So
yeah. Well, they look good. Looks like an awesome collection.
Thank you. This used to be a toy room for the kids, and I just made it my own toy room.
Yeah.
You can see some of the toys back here.
Bianca, I kind of want to take it back a little bit. I want to hear about what it is about Vision and Scarlet, because we talk to a lot of people, and it's, we hear Spider-Man, we hear Wolverine, tell us, you're the first. Have we had any other obscure kind of character people, JP? I can't think of anyone like at Vision. We've definitely not had a Vision.
Silver Surfer is very obscure. Someone who likes that.
I love Silver Surfer.
My guy.
Silver Surfer. So really what first attracted me to Vision was the Vision and Scarlet Witch dynamic, right? Like them together. And so I was kind of like first introduced to Vision comic book wise from their series. So I had mentioned like I bought that whole, it's technically the second volume. That's the one that's more famous. I feel like nobody even knows that there's a first volume. It's only 4 books, but like nobody ever talks about that one. But
when did those come out?
The early 80s.
80? Okay.
84, I think. So that's how I saw them. It was like, it's a cool love story as well as them like fighting crime and like, saving the world type of thing. So it's cool because they're already together. So it's actually the first issue you kind of pick it up where there is telling you the origin story of Vision. So you kind of get the origin story of him and how they met and everything like that. And then it's really their love story. Like at the end, like the last issue, they have their babies, they're twins. So like what happens in the show, how they have twins in the WandaVision show, that is from the comic books. Like that happens in the comic books. So issue 12 of that series, like they have kids, whatever. They're married from before that. That happens in giant size Avengers 4 when they get married. But the dynamic of them was what kind of attracted me first. But then I started reading like some Avengers books, and he's just crazy powerful. Mm-hmm. Like nobody talks about this. Like this guy is, and I think that's why we got cheated. Because I think that if he was actually in the movies as like long-term, I don't think nothing would have been able to match up to that. I mean, this guy is like, first he's like a living AI, right? So this guy can just be anything, do anything. And he's crazy powerful and super strong. His little like laser gem. I mean, that whole thing is like
well, it's an Infinity Stone too, right?
Literally. And it will cut through anything, like slicing buildings in half. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
like the range of this thing is wild.
Civil War is like the only movie that really showcases some level of power that he has. Like in Infinity War, like he's like the main kind of target almost in that movie.
Yeah.
And he just like runs away the whole time. Like
yeah.
Yeah. And then it was bad. And then you get Infinity War, and then that was like, that was a depressing ending to that whole storyline. But he's super powerful, and he is something that is crazy is he is like a main character in the Avengers comics. Like this man from Avengers 57 on is like on every cover of every Avengers book. Like up and like in the entire vintage series. Like he is, even if he's in like the little corner box, like he's on every single Avengers comic book. He is a main Avenger, like main.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
And so it's like we got him in like this little split second in the movies, which sucked, but he is such a key part of like the Avengers story in the comics. And I just love how powerful he is. And he's like a gentleman. Like if you see him in the comics with Scarlet Witch, he's very like, back off, that's my wife. Like he's very like that. Like cool. Like he's very chivalrous, which is cool because I feel like you don't really get that when you see superheroes. You don't get to see that side. They're just beating up bad guys. So it was.
You
cool.
get that with Superman if you watch the old Superman movies.
Oh, okay. Maybe I need to do that.
Yeah,
I think I just cross over.
You've never seen the Superman, the first?
I've never.
Oh, the first two are still to this day excellent.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He will remind you of Vision, how you're thinking of them. He's that, I would say, in those first two movies. You probably like two better than the first one, thinking about that Scarlet and Vision Scarlet and Vision story. They are, again, it's like going back to watch the Star Wars episode 4.
Right.
So it's a little campy, but I mean it is one of the best superhero movies there ever was made.
And those two movies are like that is who Superman is from the books. Like even though I think Henry Cavill makes a great Superman in terms of what he looks like, the Superman that they wrote for him was awful. Like those two first original movies, that is Superman to a T.
Yeah.
I love that. I do like when they get things comic book accurate. I do like that.
And I guess for the most part with MCU, we've been okay with some of what they've done, but whenever you have a favorite character like Vision and they don't do them right, just like, it doesn't take away from the show, but it was all there, right? There was a nice big story of Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet you could have made. And, now what I'm thinking now is who is left in the MCU in phase 4 that's powerful enough? I haven't seen Vision since Scarlet,
WandaVision.
WandaVision. He's the White Vision now.
Yeah. So, which honestly, like, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that because Vision doesn't exist. Like that Vision in the show wasn't real. You know what I mean? So there is no Vision.
I thought there was one that White Vision isn't real.
So the White Vision is real.
Right. But the one that she portrayed. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Like the White Vision, but it's not like he doesn't know that he's Vision, if that makes sense. So he was made by like the government basically as a weapon. They used like the parts from the actual Vision. Like if you remember him, like after the Infinity Stone and all that, he was like on the table, like all put into parts. And so they used him to create this machine. And that's what White Vision is. But in the show, like you see them like interacting like regular Vision and White Vision. And he's like trying to get him to remember who he is. But like, he's like, I don't have like that in my brain. Like they didn't put that memory chip.
But there's supposed to be a Vision Quest show coming out.
Yeah.
Somehow in the near future, I believe.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be White Vision.
Yeah.
Like, who,
well, that's why I wonder with like they did the She-Hulk, they have Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch and Vision, and then they're going to do the Wonder Man show.
And doesn't Wonder Man have some connection with Vision?
They do. Major connection to Vision. That's like his best friend.
Right.
Yeah.
So but didn't he get his intellect from Wonder Man or something to that effect? So that's what I thought with White Vision, they'll bring in Wonder Man to try to get the morals that White Vision needs from Wonder Man somehow.
I could definitely see how they're tying that because I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you're right about where Vision got his intellect from. Like it's modeled after Wonder Man.
Wonder Man died.
So
yeah.
I could see how maybe they do that to try to like bring humanity like into the White Vision and kind of but apparently they're supposed to even bring in like Vision's family because there's a modern series called Vision that he has like a whole family, like he has a wife and 2 kids and the wife is not
Scarlet Witch.
Not Scarlet Witch. It's not Wanda Maximoff. It's like another lady and they have 2 kids and the girl, well, both of the kids, they're supposed to be part of the Young Avengers. And it's like a whole, What's that?
From that Vision story. So that's part of the okay. So I thought the kids from the WandaVision show were the ones that were in the Young Avengers. So this is from the Vision comic.
Yeah, because it's weird because I'm interested to see because I haven't read the modern one. So
I imagine they'll blend them if they do use them. Like I can't imagine
I
they're
can
gonna like bring
imagine
in two other kids and be like, no, these are other kids. Like
right. So the ones in the story of the Scarlet Witch and Vision together, it's two boys. They're twin boys, right? And that's what we see in the show. And then there's supposed to be one of those boys ends up being kind of like a Quicksilver sort of character, right? And we see that in the show, like he's fast like that. And then there's one who's supposed to turn into, his name is Wiccan, something like that.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's from the Young Avengers. But then there's this girl, cannot think of her name, but it's something Vision. And she is in that new series that apparently she's supposed to also be in, like get introduced into the Young Avengers. So I'm interested into how they're going to kind of twist this whole kid thing, or if that they're going to use that other Vision kid to be a kid from White Vision. And then they'll use the twins to be the kids from the original Vision. You get me? Like kind of like a, variant situation.
True. And that's because that's the path they've been doing. Everything's now multiverse.
Exactly. I feel like they can do whatever they at this point. I mean, like
there's
do whatever you want.
Supposedly the Secret Wars movies is supposed to kind of be the conclusion of the multiverse stuff. So I think that won't continue past that.
Yeah, I hope not, because I feel like it's just going to kind of get more convoluted as we go on, and it's going to start getting really messy.
Yeah, they're going to probably get rid of Tom Holland and bring in a live action Miles at the end of that Secret Wars, and then whoever's left at that, there'll be people that die, and there'll be a group that lives on from different multiverses that continue the 616 or whatever, and you might have the one from the Vision story and one from the other story,
right?
Make it through and become the Young Avengers, because that's all I've been hearing about is what's it, Belova,
Elena
Belova. That's supposed to be in the Young Avengers. So is Hawkeye, whatever. I forget her name off the top of my head. But they're all supposed to be these Young Avengers.
Katie Bishop.
Yeah. Kate Bishop.
And then Shang-Chi is supposed to be there, and like I see no direction right now with where we go with this stuff. So
they've come out and said that like in Kang Dynasty, it's going to be like the Falcon, Captain America, Shang-Chi, Shuri, and I'm assuming it's going to be like Kate Bishop and a couple of those other young.
But how do those people fight Kang? Like I don't see how they have.
I think in Kang Dynasty, my guess is that Kang like wipes the floor with them. Right, and so then with the end of that, they have to like kind of call in or somehow like bring back some of the bigger, more powerful, or somehow bring in more powerful characters, and that will set up Secret Wars is my guess.
Yeah, I can kind of picture like sort of an endgame situation where we're just losing massively with what we have, and then it's kind of like call in backup, and it's like everybody from them, and we get like every Spider-Man, every this character, every that character, and it's kind of, and we're gonna get stuff from like before the MCU, like all the X-Men and all the everything, all the Fantastic Four, and just everybody. Which I mean, we already started hearing about stuff like that with Deadpool.
Yeah. I mean, that's what as far as I'm concerned, like it's all awry until that starts happening.
Yeah.
The stuff that's going on is, like, we were talking, Bianca, did you watch Secret Invasion?
I actually only watched the first 2 episodes and I could not get into it.
Oh, you didn't get it? Okay.
It's the first thing that I haven't watched.
Okay. So, I mean, are you going to watch it or?
Yeah, but you can talk about it. It's fine.
Well, because my point is like, I actually really enjoyed Secret Invasion up until the end. And then they just like ruined it all in the last episode. And I was like, man, I thought they were finally getting something. And then,
it didn't. The payoff was not there.
Like they had this big like whole event that they were building up, and you're like, oh, this is great. It's gonna have bigger implications. And then the last episode, they literally like end it all in like 30 seconds.
Right.
Like
that's disappointing.
And it is legitimately the worst CGI I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah. Well, I felt like that in the first episode. I was like, and it was just, I mean, the first episode was there. I was so much going on. I was like, what is happening? It was so much. And I was like, okay, it's going to start making sense. And then it didn't really captivate me within the second episode. And so I started kind of watching something else, and I haven't, gone back and finished it, but I do intend to. I just, it didn't suck me in like everything else has.
It had some great acting, but the as good as the acting was, how well they portrayed those scenes were very futile when you watch the last episode.
Well, that's why I think they really, because I thought, what's the actress's name? Is it Olivia Colman? She was in like The Crown.
The British woman, yeah.
Yeah, the British, like the head of like the British like MI6 in that show. She was awesome in the show, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of just like wasted all of that because she was fantastic.
No, the dialogue between Rhodey and Samuel Jackson, the dialogue between Gravik and Samuel Jackson and Fury. I can't not call him Samuel Jackson because I loved him back in Pulp Fiction. So, but it just didn't have any payoff. They had so much gravitas in those acting. They have some great actors, and that was all for none. Yeah, and you'll see at the end it's like that meant nothing. It's kind of like watching a show and your favorite character dies, and you were like, "Oh my God, that was the." I'm gonna miss him, but wow, what a payoff! Whatever, Endgame. And then the next movie makes it all a dream, and you go,
"Oh."
So you're like, that really didn't mean anything,
That's kind of like what they did with Star Wars and the sequels when they brought Palpatine back, and you were like, "Well, that made nothing and like there was no value in what they were talking about the Chosen One. Like that didn't exist."
No,
never mind.
That movie lost me when Luke Skywalker was milking that cow thing, and I was like, I'm done watching this. I still watched it, but I was like, that's terrible. He was my hero as a kid. I was him for almost every Halloween. My aunt made me like the brown cloak he had over top of his Jedi outfit, and I had the lightsaber, and then they ruined him with that shot so mad.
Yeah. I know you were mentioning you're not a fan of Anakin Skywalker, but I am. I love Anakin Skywalker, and once they brought Palpatine back, it literally erased everything about Anakin's storyline.
Oh yeah, I don't. You can't basically tell the same story 3 different times with this rise. So there could have been something different, and I liked episode 7 because it brought back nostalgia, but then they lost me with the rest of the next 2.
Yeah, episode 7 was essentially episode 4 with different characters.
But it was fun to see it again, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Brought me back into the theater, just almost like episode 1. I remember seeing that in the theaters because it was packed and everyone had waited 20-some years to see another Star Wars movie again. And, we got stupid, what's his name? Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks.
I cannot. That worst written Star Wars character ever.
Terrible.
Oh, man.
And the pod race scene's awesome. Darth Maul's great. I like Qui-Gon. I like Obi-Wan. But then I just never pictured Anakin to be the way they portrayed him. I like the actor, but talk about bad acting. Episode 2 between Padme and Anakin.
Oh my God.
Those are 2 good actors too.
Yeah. No. Hayden Christensen is like the worst actor on the planet. What is he is so bad. He is so bad.
I don't know if it was written bad or not, but I know what's her name, Natalie Portman's. She's supposed to be.
She's great.
Yeah. She was also really young in that movie. Like I feel like
if you watch her in V for Vendetta, or you watch her in The Professional, like she was good in those, and she was like 10.
Well, those movies are bad, but like Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi's awesome. Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, awesome. Like there's a lot of great. Or Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu was awesome. Like
he was good, but he was Samuel Jackson with a robe on. Give me who the heck gets a purple lightsaber?
That's what I say every single. I'm like, listen. First of all, that was just Samuel L. Jackson being featured in a Star Wars film. That's what that was. He was not an actual Jedi. He did not play a Jedi. He played Samuel L. Jackson, and they gave him a purple lightsaber because he said he wanted one, and they just messed it all up. I didn't like that at all.
I'm like, there's blue or green or red. That's the only 3 colors are supposed to be. And he gets purple. And then now there's white. Now there's orange. Now there's like an off red or something. And
like kind of like a pink when they showed Leia's.
Did you watch all the Clone Wars then, Bianca? JP and I have been told we have to watch those.
I did. I watched all of Clone Wars and Rebels. I'm really excited for the Ahsoka show that comes out in like 3 weeks.
Oh, is that soon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, August 23rd, I think it is.
See, those Clone Wars, from what I understand, those helped the storyline of episode 2 and 3.
Yeah,
I didn't watch the cartoons.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like you appreciate those movies way more if you watch Clone Wars, particularly like season 6 and 7, especially 7. Like 7 bridges the gap between 2 and 3, between episodes.
I gotta say, I mean, I am 1 year in, and you watch the entire MCU, All Stars, and the like. A
lot of screen time.
The time is not adding up to me.
There's a lot of screen time. I also like multitask a lot, so it'll be like I'm folding laundry and I'm watching Clone Wars. Yeah, I'm doing the dishes and I have the phone propped up next to the sink watching Clone Wars. Because that was the only way to get through Clone Wars, because it is a bajillion seasons.
Yeah, it's like it's so like I want to do it, but then every time I like pull it up, I'm like whatever 8, 7, whatever season it is, and set like 20 something. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know.
Actually, so another reason why I got through it the way I did, a friend of mine actually in like the Instagram community was like, I was telling him about Clone Wars, and he was like, I have the best cheat sheet for you, and it's all the essential episodes. So it removes all the filler. And because there is filler, there really is. And it's all the like essential episodes to get all the main plot lines.
Okay.
So
I think maybe after we get off here, you should share that with JP and I here.
Yeah, I got you.
Because I started it, and I had watched it some years back, and I got as far the second time watching as I did the first time. As soon as Yoda fights off all those stormtroopers himself, and then Captain Rex or someone got hurt, and that's I got 20 minutes in and I was done. Like I couldn't get past it. Not that it was bad. I don't know. I just couldn't get past it.
I will say season 1 is definitely the roughest to get through. I feel like the animation does get better, but it's also hard to get used to. Like, especially if you're just watching live action stuff all the time, the fact that it's an animation show is tough to like, I don't know. It's weird to connect to. It's a weird animation.
I have a problem with this when people are like, oh, this show's great, but you can't. The first season's bad. Don't worry. I was like, what do you mean the first season's bad? Like for example, like people talk about that show, The Witcher on Netflix. And
I want to watch it.
But everyone's like, the people I know that watch like, oh yeah, but the first season's bad. You just got to get through that. I'm like, what do you mean I got to get through the first season? Like if it's not good the first season, how does this get better? Like I don't.
What it is in Clone Wars is it's a lot of story building in the first season. So there's not like, like they're trying to kind of like lay out like the General Grievous storyline, and there's a lot of there's a lot less characters, where I feel like once you get into season 2 and all of that, like you start getting a lot of these characters that you know and love from episode 1 and 2, and you start to see them in a new storyline. Like you get the part you were missing from the movies, and so you get hooked because you get the in-between. And you get the storyline that there was no time to tell you in the movies. So that's why people love it so much. Like, cause it's so good. You get there's a huge chunk of Clone Wars that's about the Mandalorians, like a massive chunk that if you don't watch that, you literally have no idea who they are. So you may have watched the Mandalorian show, and they kind of talk about the origin of Mandalore and all of that a little bit. But like the Clone Wars goes way into it, and you meet multiple Mandalorians, not just like what you see in the live action show.
Dave Filoni, who wrote the Clone Wars, who's basically building the universe now. He's like the Kevin Feige of Star Wars.
Right.
So he started that Clone Wars, and there's so many stories to tell that made those characters much more riveting than what they were in the movies.
For sure.
And I didn't see Clone Wars, but I know that from talking to people who are passionate about it, because I love Star Wars. I was, born when it came out. So, I mean, I have a connection to it. So some things never live up to what you imagine in your head, but the Mandalorian show and then Clone Wars, from what I hear, like really brought it back. I mean, there was nothing better than seeing Luke Skywalker at the last episode of Mandalorian.
That was awesome. So good.
So
That was
I'm
so
gonna
good.
try again with Clone Wars, but
Yeah, give it a shot. It's really, I think it's worth it, especially once I give you that list.
Yeah,
And
I
the
want
red
this
list,
list. Yeah, I want this
there's
list.
not. I mean, it's still a lot. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie.
Yeah,
It's
this is
still
like the Cliff Notes version of the Clone
right.
Wars.
It is 100%. And then Rebels is an amazing show also. Which really, if you're gonna watch the Ahsoka show, you need that story because the rebels are in that show. Or the storyline continues from that point. So it's a huge chunk of the timeline that to kind of continue moving forward with the new projects. It's like you kind of have to watch it.
yeah, that's they really the Mandalorian brought that put everything back into place for Star Wars. I have to say, because the
I love
movies
that show.
7, 8, 9 did. I mean, they had some great scenes, but the Mandalorian really like helped Star Wars, and I think this new direction is really going to be big. And Grand Admiral Thrawn coming into it, I'm excited for
Cannot
that.
wait.
I read those books back in the '90s. I don't know if you're the heir to the Empire and
Yeah,
all that,
I've read them too. They're so good.
and I like them. And that's the story I thought they would have put on screen for 7, 8, 9. I had thought that's the way they were going to go,
Well,
and
I
then
think that was the conversation at one point. And I think that that's what everybody thought. And
yeah,
then,
then they came
yeah,
out with Episode 1, and I was like, all right, I guess we'll go to the prequel. And then I was hoping they would eventually make the real 7, 8, 9, and they just went a totally different direction. So
yeah. Well, I will say you do get that. You do get his storyline if you watch Clone Wars and Rebels. So, or more Rebels, but um, give it a shot. It's so good. It's so
Yeah,
yeah,
good.
definitely.
there's a storyline too between Empire and Return of the Jedi. There's a storyline with some prince, um, basically Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia trying to find Han Solo, and they're traveling the galaxy trying to get him back from Boba Fett, and they run it all. There's a whole movie that can be told in the storyline that was written in a book. I don't know the name of the book off the top of
Yeah.
my head, but I know there's a big storyline with some weird looking alien prince and Boba Fett and Jabba the Hutt, and I don't know if Thrawn met into that or not, but there is definitely some great connections, and would be a nice storyline to tell, see on screen someday. So
Yeah.
Bianca, I'm curious to know. So JP and I, right? We grew up on this stuff, and then obviously as we got older, we kind of fell away. But we always like still in the back of our heads like liked a lot of this stuff. And then when like the movies came out, whether it be like the original X-Men movies, Spider-Man movies, and then Iron Man in 2008, we obviously started watching those. We didn't really start getting back into collecting until a year ago. You, as you said, go all in when you go in. This is
Yeah.
you have essentially become as versed as JP and I in 1 year.
Yeah.
So how do you like, and well, I'll add to that is like, my wife thinks it's wild that like JP and I have a podcast. We've never actually met. And I've made a lot of these friends like on Instagram
Yeah.
and things like that. But like, how does that work with, what do your friends and family think about that when they see you who don't have this kind of roots in this stuff, but all of a sudden 1 year, just like, bam, I am now the guru. Like,
Yeah. Well, so my friends, I have a couple friends that are nerdy also. So they're like all for it. They're like, finally, welcome to the club. And
nice.
everybody else is kind of like, well, if it makes you happy. But they kind of say that it's funny that you say the whole thing about how you've never met and all of that. It's so crazy. Because people tell me the same thing. I was like, oh yeah, my friend from, and you say my friend, like, and you're like, and they're like, oh, I'm like, no, but they live in the other side of the country, or they don't even live in this country.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, have you ever met? I'm like, no, we literally just talk on Instagram, but he's a friend, but he's a
Yep.
friend. So
Yeah.
it's crazy, the community, which is honestly my favorite thing
100%.
about this whole journey has been the community, and like getting on Instagram was like the best decision. And like going for that and going into that world, and it's been a lot of fun. So I think everyone sees that I'm having a good time, so everyone's like, cool, you do.
Have you, in previous to Marvel and Star Wars, was there anything else that like, is there something else you've gotten into like this where people are like, oh, it's just a phase for Bianca, or is this like a whole new kind of thing.
I would say this is like a whole new kind of thing. I mean, I do have other hobbies for sure. I mean, like I said, I've always been into reading. So like things like books. I'm also super into like fitness. Like I love to work out. So that's like part of my, like a big personality trait of mine, I guess. But I would say this one is definitely like whoa, where did this come from? Because this one's like pretty big, you know? And this one like takes up a good chunk of my life. But yeah, it's fun.
You're here 1 year in. What does Bianca 2 years from now look like? 3 years from now, like in terms of where does this go?
Hopefully with a lot more keys, and you know, a bigger community. I feel like I've really built a nice little. Honestly, it still shocks me how I even got to almost 6,000 followers in less than a year.
Damn.
I have no idea how I got here. Like sometimes I blink and I'm like, what? I started my Instagram in October. So it's going to be coming up on a year soon that I started. And I did not think that it was going to get to what it got to. But, and I'm obviously like nowhere. I see there's so many creators that are like 45K and all of this stuff. And not that that's necessarily the goal, although that would be cool. I think it's just kind of like continuing that community. I have a good time, you know, like going to conventions and stuff like that. And, you know, potentially even meeting like you guys, like stuff like that connection. I think that's what I hope like more of in the future. I think you've done 2 episodes with Nick, right? Yeah, we did too.
Have you done any other like podcast, or was that your first time diving into that? Is that something you want to get into, or?
Yeah, that was my first time. You know, it's weird because sometimes you get these like invites for stuff and like such a scam. Like people are so weird sometimes on like DMs. I'm like, what are you asking me to do? Like come on a show and you look and they have like 2 followers. So you're like,
I haven't had any of that.
Yeah, like people are weird. But no, Nick invited me to go on the show, and we did really well. It was such a fun time, honestly. And then when the Spider-Verse movie came out, he was like, you want to come back on? I was like, absolutely, because I have a lot to say. So
did Nick reach out to you out of the blue?
He did. Yeah. He just reached out to me. He was like, hey, we're looking for, and it was kind of like the same thing. Like we want a female perspective. I think that's what, you know, is a lot of the appeal, like for my page, I guess. It's just that it's different. Like most of it, you know, it's a very male dominated.
Totally. World. I think that's 100% part of it. For sure.
So, you know, I think that's definitely what draws a lot of people there in the first place. And he just wanted a girl on the show. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And it went really well. So we were like, let's do it again. And it was really fun.
Is there going to be more?
Maybe. I would be totally down. I mean, we've talked like maybe in the future, you know, there's some good stuff coming out. So I'm definitely down to go back on. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, when the Ahsoka movie, the show comes out, we can have you back on and review that, because I'm definitely looking forward to that show. Because we have lunch money on to review certain Marvel movies, and we definitely have you back on to do that, or the Ahsoka, because I'm a Star Wars buff, but I think you know more about Star Wars, and you've only been into it a year, because you know the whole Clone War thing. So
yeah,
I would watch
the Clone Wars thing is like next level. I feel like
so we need that perspective, because same with Nick. Nick reads more books than we did. So when we have him and his buddy, who we had on as well,
Brett is our DC guy.
Yeah, he knows DC like no tomorrow. So between Nerd King and yourself knowing Star Wars, I mean that's would be helpful, just to, you know, get a take, you know, a real fan. I mean, not that I'm not a real fan, but like, I don't know what might be missing, and you might say, oh, they didn't do this right, you know, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I would totally be down for that. When it comes to movies and shows, I have a lot to say.
Which we're going to be very without them, with this strike going any further. We're going to be watching reruns. You're going to have time to watch Clone Wars, Rohan, and
I was going to say, you're going to have plenty of time to watch Clone Wars.
Yeah, we're going to watch that. You can watch Superman 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
and
there we go.
Even watch 4, maybe. Even watch 4, I'd say.
Watch 4. On that note, is the Marvels like the next thing coming out, or is there anything before that?
Yeah, Marvel.
Well, you got Blue Beetle, but you're
I meant Marvel wise.
Yeah, movie wise, the Marvels is next, but there is
Loki season 2
coming out October 6th, which I am thrilled
Yes.
for.
Yeah, I've thought like I've thought the shows have been rather lackluster for the most part, but Loki is like the one that like A is good through out, and B actually has a wider um, context to the greater MCU. Where that's kind of one of my biggest issues with some of the
Yeah.
shows. It's like we have this MCU, but these shows mean nothing to them. Like there's no stakes. There's that whereas Loki did, and so definitely, and like they've already there's obviously scenes with like Kang in Loki season 2. So yeah, definitely. When does
Yeah.
that come out?
For
October.
sure, the Loki show that comes out October 6th.
Okay.
But that's what I loved. I mean, Loki was my favorite Marvel show that they've come out with. Like, I think it's the best show. Although I did love WandaVision. Like, that's definitely top, like second.
Yeah, WandaVision at least also had like greater implications to the
It did.
greater
It did.
MCU.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
WandaVision was like you said, Clone Wars season 1. That first episode of WandaVision, I was like, "What the heck is going on here?"
Yeah.
It was black and white, and
Well, they did it
I
for
didn't
like
get
3. It wasn't until like the 3rd episode, I think, that they finally started to fade in the color.
Yeah,
I
I was
remember,
like, I was having a hard time. I was like, "Man, I got much other things to watch besides
yeah,
this."
I agree that they like milked that for a little too much. It's like, okay, come on, let's just get on with this.
Yeah. But Loki was like good from the
Yeah.
jump, like episode 1. And that season finale, like I have watched episode 6 like 5 times. Just I'm like bored one day. I'm like, I want to watch it. It's so good. Like it was such a great episode. And I think that besides that Ant-Man movie, we haven't like had multiverse ties right now. Like I feel like we're ignoring it, even though it was
Yeah.
like such a huge thing in like Ant-Man and all of that. Like we haven't talked about it again. So I feel like with this coming out, we're starting to, because it doesn't feel like we're in a multiverse saga right now with like the stuff that's come out recently. And although like Guardians, I loved it, but it had nothing to do with
the Guardians was nothing to do with the multiverse. I don't even know if the Marvels has anything to do with. I thought Marvels was going to tie into like Secret Invasion.
I think it will, because I think that they're going to be trying to work on the Kree and the Skrulls, which
I was going to say the Skrull storyline, like which I'm here like I feel like we're dipping in a lot of pots right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing a lot.
They're throwing stuff on the wall and seeing what will stick.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, though. I do think that the MCU, as it continues, they do need to kind of like branch along various paths, because the goal is always to bring on new fans, and you can't bring on a new fan and be like, hey, you've got to watch 30 years of movies to understand what's going on in this, right?
Yeah.
So they do.
You can do it a year, right?
But like most people, no offense, most people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like you do need to kind of just develop some kind of independent path, like I said,
you want street level characters.
Yeah, you have street level characters with like Daredevil and Kingpin, and then you can have your cosmic characters, and you can have like something kind of the mutant saga, right? And like Spider-Man is a character that kind of can flow between those as kind of a go between if you need it.
And think about when I collected and I was reading. Let's say I mostly just looked at the pictures because I love Todd McFarlane's artwork. But if you had a run-in with like Wolverine on Spider-Man and he went like, oh, that guy was pretty cool, let me go check out his book. And then you had like Doctor Strange in there, and then you're like, oh, that guy's cool. And then you start to branch out. So if you have street level but bring in Strange or Adam Warlock or Silver Surfer to kind of, be part of the one storyline, and then people go, oh, let me go check out the cosmic guys and so on and so forth. So I think you can have them separate, but sort of still connect them in small ways. That's what got me in to the Silver Surfer. He was in a Spider-Man.
I think what they were doing, like in phase 1, worked really well in the sense that everything felt very standalone until the Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like these stories were like, if you were a Thor fan, then you can just watch those movies. And then if you wanted to see him again, you could watch Avengers, but you didn't need anything else really to like, so I feel like the way they did that worked really well for people, like you're saying, like if you just kind of want to follow one.
And I also just like moving forward, like I don't need anytime they bring a new character, and I don't need like, well, where were you during the blip? And it's like, I don't need that answer.
There's two terminologies now.
I will say that made a mess.
The snap, whatever you want to talk.
The blip is when everyone went away. The snap is when everybody came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is like, I don't need that question
answered
every single time. Well, where were you during this? It's like, just bring them on and let's go. Like
again, with us, if you were around in early 2000 with September 11th, that a lot of people asked the same question: where were you and how it changed your life? So the blip is that, and the flip and the snap are like they're that event for them, I guess you'll say.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Totally.
that's
Yeah.
why it keeps getting
I
referenced.
totally get that.
But I know, right?
Like, I just don't need it. I don't need to spend any more movie time like discussing that. Like when they
Yeah.
bring in the Fantastic Four and they bring in the X-Men, like there are ways to make these movies without having to worry about like where were they when Thanos was here? Like,
Yeah, but they're not telling. There's a storyline that they just messed up with when, again, I want to ruin it for you, but on Secret Invasion that messes up key parts of the storyline, going
no,
back to Endgame.
yeah, I'm sure you've actually probably seen that. Like, it's been all over. He's talking about like
I haven't actually. I haven't
All right,
seen
I'm
any
not gonna tell you.
spoilers or anything about see. I like avoid it. I see it. I'm like,
Okay.
oh, and I just keep scrolling.
So that's
But
the thing. You have too many things you change. You gotta. The MCU has been very good at keeping the everything intact. Same with
Yeah.
Filoni and Star Wars. Like they keep it intact, and that means a lot to a fan. And
For
they
sure.
kind of are messing some stuff up. So again, you're gonna have hiccups, but again, these are like, okay, you guys keep keep messing
Yeah.
up the storyline, and you're not going in continuity, and you're changing things that shouldn't be changed.
Yeah. I think what you said about the blip, Rohan, is so funny because they say it in every movie.
every movie
Literally,
is
they
just
say
like
the word
every
blip
movie.
in
Yeah.
every single movie because it's like you have to talk about it because if not, then you feel like people are gonna be wondering. But like
Yeah.
I'm not wondering. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
just keep talking.
Yeah, we're in the
Um,
next phase. Like life
yeah.
has evolved. Like let's just power
Don't worry
ahead.
about it. Just forget about that blip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Or the
yeah.
good thing is I do feel like if we're talking multiverse, technically, like if it's from another timeline, we don't have to talk about it. Like
Well, I mean, like in Multiverse of
Mhm.
Madness, when they went to that other world, they did have their own version of Thanos because Doctor Strange was the one that like used the book or whatever to kill him or something. I can't remember
right.
the
Oh, that's
details.
true. Oh, and I guess technically when so the question is when he blipped half the universe, it was only the universe in that
In
universe
that universe, but I think like every alternate universe has
has their own version of the blip.
their own
See,
version of
that's
events.
messy. That's
Right,
I
like
just
know.
similar to like with the Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie,
right.
each different variation still has that like what
The
do they call it?
canon
Nexus
events.
events or whatever.
Canon
Yeah,
events. Yeah.
I tell you what, it shows me that the intelligence of the writers to come up with all this, especially because this is all comic book related. They
Yeah.
had written this stuff years and years ago, for the most part, and they're putting it on screen now, but it's getting convoluted and it's getting hard to follow up. Just bringing the X-Men. I don't know what the storyline is. It's not because they
yeah.
came in from the blip. It isn't Fantastic Four was a band in the '60s. It's you need to just bring them in somehow. I don't know
Yeah.
how it is, but
Well, I
again,
think there's easy like for X-Men, for example, like you kind of just play it up as like mutants have always been among us. They just haven't been out in the open. So you can kind of
how
like
would they not? How would
well,
not?
I mean, like think about it like with Miss Marvel at the end, the show they like hinted at, oh, she's a mutant. And so like they can further evolve like because that's kind of the whole storyline is like mutants were before like the X-Men run, they just kind of were like they didn't want to be,
Yeah, they got
out in the
integrated.
open. They want to just be, regular people and like there could be like events that kind of bring, them out and like that's how they can bring in the X-Men. And then like they've already talked about how like the Fantastic Four, are coming from a different time period or something like that. And so I think they can do fine. We just need to get to it in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
enough with this fiddling around with all this BS characters.
I was I was very disappointed with Thor: Love and Thunder because I loved Ragnarok, like you said,
Yeah,
just like
it was
you.
awful.
It was awful, and I had looked
Yes.
forward to seeing Hercules and Zeus and all those new cosmic characters to help fight the next battle because we're all getting to Secret Wars, and they did it terribly. I look forward to Ant-Man and Quantumania, and they got Kang, but nobody else. There has not been any really good characters brought in, and they've hinted of them, and just Adam Warlock, another one that just wasn't done right, and that's
And
I
that's
was
what
hoping they would.
I think they're out of kind of like A-level characters until Fantastic Four and until X-Men.
Yeah.
Right. So we need Fantastic Four, we need X-Men, Adam Warlock done right. There are some other characters to bring in. I'm trying to think of them all through. I mean, big as the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Bringing those in is going to really. You're kind of trudging along through the mud here until you bring them in, and you
Yeah.
just got to do it.
And
I
it's
don't know
so
what they're
far
waiting
out
for.
though.
so far out, and it just and now with this strike, it's going to get pushed out even more. And
we're talking like 2026 to 2028. Like these people are talking like crazy far down. I'm like, I can't wait that long.
Well, they also just they just posted this week that the Spider-Verse movie, which was supposed to be in 2024, is now out. It's just indefinitely unknown when it's going to come out,
which is crazy. I mean, I definitely thought that original timeline was kind of wild. I was like, that's really fast, but now it's just like, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man.
What about the Craven movie? It was supposed to come out in October.
They think they pushed that to no.
That's going to be awful. It was coming out in October. I'm like, how is this coming out already?
But yeah, that movie's going to be awful.
Yeah, I have no expectations on that.
Yeah, one. I have no interest. I didn't watch any of the beyond the first Venom movie. I didn't watch the Morbius. That whole Sony verse is a disaster.
But they did Spider-Verse so well. It makes no sense.
Yeah. I think they gave that Lord and Miller control of that, and that's who should be running the Sony verse probably.
Yep. I agree. So. I'm waiting for Miles to make it in there, and then I'll retire on my 9.6. We have a couple bets, Rowan and I.
Actually, so this is a good question.
Do you have an FF4 or something?
No. So do you follow collecting? Obviously, so you're attuned to values and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, we have two bets. So the more immediate one is for Ultimate Fallout 4, just the direct version, not the, I call it the jerk off variant, but just the regular direct version. A 9.8 right now. There's a 9.8. Is it on Grails or Elites? $1,550. Right. So the 9.6 is floating in the $600 to $700 range.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a bet that the 9.6, JP thinks it'll hit $1,000 by the next movie of Spider-Verse. I say it won't jump that high because my logic is at the boom, Ultimate Fallout 4 hit about $3,600 for a 9.8. And that was when the 9.6 was, I think, probably around $1,000. So I think to get to the 1,000 for him, Ultimate Fallout 4's got to get up to that $3,600. I don't think that happens in the next year or two.
Yeah,
I think that's more maybe down the line when the live action Miles comes about. So we have this bet.
You said 5 to 10 years is what you're saying.
Yes, I said 5, but the bet is between now and the next Spider-Verse movie, will a 9.6 FMV hit $1,000? What do you think?
I
say yes.
I say for a week, it will.
Well,
that's all I need.
I think we said I think what was our two eBay sales of 1,000 or FMV changes to 1,000 on Go Collect for the 9.6.
Yeah, I feel like it would be you would have to watch it like a hawk and just get really lucky one day, one afternoon, and just.
Well, that's why we said two eBay sales because I feel like there could be just a random.
Yeah, true.
Funky sale on eBay or something like that. So.
But I think it can happen. I have faith.
All right, it's on your side, JP.
The other bet, you don't watch the DC. You don't watch any DC or read DC. But have you ever heard of Lobo?
No, actually.
Okay, so Jason Momoa, I'm sure you know Jason from Aquaman. So he's supposed to play the character.
Well, no, it's never been actually.
It's never been said. I'm insinuating that.
Everyone fan cast him to play this character. He's obviously been Aquaman, and those movies are terrible.
He's like Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool, right?
Yeah.
Jason Momoa is Lobo, in my opinion. So I collected Lobo back in the 90s along with Wolverine and Deadpool. For some reason, Wolverine his first appearance is obviously up here. Deadpool's is down here, equal to what's her name, Harley Quinn. I don't see how Harley Quinn is worth what she is, more so than Deadpool, the first appearance of Deadpool. I don't think, and I think Lobo is in that same caliber. So I'm saying that the Deadpool 9.8 is going to be worth $500 by the time the Lobo movie comes out. 9.8 now at $330. The recent sale.
You said Deadpool. You mean the Omega Man 3?
Lobo. Omega Man 3.
Yeah, Omega Man 3 is the
will be worth $500 because that's what a Deadpool. Well, it's worth more than that. But my opinion is that Lobo should be in the same ballpark as Deadpool and Harley Quinn. He doesn't think it'll get to that $500.
Where we have the huge gap in where we are thinking involved is JP equates Lobo to Deadpool and Harley Quinn. And in my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds, there's a great chasm between the popularity of the characters, big time. And that's where JP and I don't see eye to eye on. So, but
I think when I collected in the '90s, I felt as popular as Wolverine, and his comic book never reached that same status. And now it's almost you can't even get there. I don't think with as much as a Wolverine like a Hulk
No.
181 is worth. But I think he can hit eventually the Deadpool status because, I mean, Ryan Reynolds made Deadpool. I mean, he was popular before then, but I think he made it what it is, and I think Margot Robbie made Harley Quinn as popular. But I think Lobo will be there. So you're gonna read one DC book and watch one DC show. Read
That's
Lobo
the one.
and watch Superman 1 and 2. And that's
Yeah.
my recommendation for you today.
Okay.
So and we'll watch Clone Wars and we'll have
Perfect.
much to talk
I
about.
do.
for
I
Ahsoka.
do second the. I don't second the read Lobo, but I do second the watch Superman 1 and 2.
Okay. No, I definitely will. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, we always say about an hour for these shows, and we go an hour and a half because we all love to talk comics and pop culture. So, Bianca, we do appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for
We'd love
having
to have
me.
you back. Yeah, love to have you back to talk
Yeah, we
Ahsoka
definitely
here
should
in a
do
couple.
the Ashoka kind of review. I'm down for that.
For sure. I'm so down for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have you back soon. Thanks to everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you thought of today's comments and who believes me on Lobo
Who's winning the
and
bet?
Ultimate Fallout 4. So I'll see everyone will probably take my side. So, but yeah, appreciate everyone watching. We'll see you all on the next show. Take
All right.
care.
See you guys.
Bye.
Peace.